Hey everybody, it's Anthony Gutierrez again, making a video on kind of an overview of what is currently here in the now, which is hard to describe unless you know something about the past, the present, and the future of events in the galaxy and events that are unfolding on the Earth and where we are in the experiment, and something also to do with past civilizations of the Terrans, which have always lived within the spiritual realms of the gods. And I would like to even say there have been a few that have ascended that, and I believe live around the spirituality of the gods, but in their own realm. So that could mean Terrans that are older than what I would even speculate or know about. And I would say that it takes about 2 million years, maybe 1 million years, 100,000, 200,000 years, but a play out of 2 million years to 200 million years. And that's kind of a speculation also. It could be 200 million years ago, the last culture that lived in that kind of a scenario. See, our predicament is that we have to co-occupy space with gods, which are the beings that create the projections and create a human, or which become human through that process of living in their spirituality. But the future is here, more to us now than in the new vibration field from start of new time to now, which kind of means that the vibrational field that the Terrans were creating or occupying or beginning to there's probably a scientific term for the word, which is creating a virus or creating the antivirus to the virus of the unknown possibility. Because if you're not within the reality of it and coming from the place where you live in mostly an unmanifested area, you have to take in the possibilities of the unknown, and and you can't do that without full awareness. So it takes some getting used to, due to the fact that the vibrational fields are such of a high quality. The exactness is that you can't just take on the pure pressure without having those alignments made within the body to know what the vibrational fields and to interpret them in a way which brings about a result of cohesion in the energy body, which is a part of the double vessel which we occupy. A material body which is fully projected and manifested here in the logos, the physical hard reality of the world, which also we know that hard objects do have resonance, so we know that our being creates a resonance, but the pure energy exists in another realm. We have other spheres which we occupy, and in those realms, or in those other layers, we have what is known as the energy body, which is probably our real reality, one that we'll have to occupy one day, and which in some way we have to address, because no one here, even if we know that life and death are real, we always wish the best and give the best for our children. And that's not a new mindset, but a mindset which we have to reobtain because of foreign installation changed a lot of things. So getting back to this new vibrational field, we could say that because of the battle between the gods and the draconians. The vibrational field that we're in is purely one that God is creating, and what we were living in was the illusion or the fixated reality in which we had created before, and kind of playing over the same scenario or same lower field vibrations, like thinking of the same exact things without any new interpretation. And if there was a new one, it was pretty much a worldwide thing for all the beings on the planet. That kind of means that before, if in our lowest qualities, what we think about is money, sex, food, shoot, I don't know what else we think about. Small things like that don't really add up or change our higher mind or our higher reality. Those are our lower mind things, the things that we think about: shelter, food, those things that a primitive being would think of, but in a more modern setting. That's kind of where the lower mindset of us are now. And most of us would say, no, it's not. And I agree with you, because that's a natural reaction to the fact that we are all beings of knowledge, and we should actually be further along on that. But due to this experiment, we are all kind of fell behind. So the vibrational field is slowly changing with the experiment changing. And I don't know exactly where we are in the experiment. I know there was a pivotal point in 2010 in the summer, which nobody knew about. The masses were, for the most part, unconscious to it. I kind of remember it. I know what was going on for the most part with Terrans. And then you also have a period in just about a month to a month and a half ago, where I don't know if the whole world felt this one. I would have to remember it later and recapitulate on the events that occurred. But I know there was my vessel was overtaken by the gods and taken into higher realms where I barely existed. But the pressure, and it was like a co-creator state. And when we say co-creator, that means God is creating another projection of himself, or the gods, or whichever beings occupy your vessel. And since we're on this planet, for the most part, God is the main being in this plane of awareness. So that's the being that is the proprietor of this area in space. If you went to another one, it would be another Elohim. And so what we had was chakra points being activated within my body. The lower ones, which is ones I mostly occupied. Actually, I think I went through all of them up to like 13, and if there were any higher than that, I couldn't be accountable for those at all. Once you remember something or you're there, you're pretty much accountable for yourself. That's a true statement. That doesn't mean that you know exactly what you were doing. So you can see how that works. You're responsible for yourself. If you're drunk and you shoot somebody, somehow you might remember it, and then you'll feel responsible, and then you have to make atones or change whatever it is you did that caused something that was sort of an atrocity. Because to kill somebody for no reason just by being drunk and losing your sobriety isn't exactly the place where you should have been. So that's a state of sobriety that you should be aware of. And that's just the poorest example to use for sobriety, because sobriety is equanimity of a being's capacity to always know where they should be. So we also have the plasma molecular possibility. I wouldn't say possibilities. I say where we are with those two respects, which has slightly changed, or maybe there's more of a residual feeling of it, which means like feels like it's more depth, but really it's like we've known it before, which doesn't really give which really isn't synchronistic, because it's like seeing it twice. So it's more like what what the old Toltecs would have called a twin palms recollection, or the remembering of the initial position, just like in dreaming, like the dreaming position that you entered into, and when we entered into this new possibility in this new domain, which probably happened around 2012 for a lot of people. And that's to say we're open to the galactic, the galaxy and the universe. You always have to say the universe first whenever talking about anything that has to do with the prime sources, or the cornerstone of anything is always the first to be recollected, because anything else after that could be recollected. But when in deep memory or deep thinking, you always have to remember the core. So the molecular and plasmic levels that we're under have changed. And if you look through the internet and you see these modern day I wouldn't call them psychic, I would call them channels, which just means that the gods are using them to relay information to the masses, or to groups of people that are awakened. And awaken is kind of a term that they use also. It doesn't include a full awakening. It just means an awakening of the resources within them to hear the commands and have their bodies in a place of being useful. And sometimes that includes pushing ourselves down to a subconscious state, so God could occupy the higher states, or gods could occupy the higher states of our body. And it's not always a task that is agreed to. It actually is never agreed to. Everybody was chosen for those roles they play. And next what I've wrote down that kind of goes along with this, and this is really an overview, so if you know anything about any of these topics, you'll be able to fill in some of the gaps. And here you'll see that this is kind of like an abstract version. So we have the totality of what makes up our existence. Once you reach the totality of yourself, you kind of embodied yourself in a way. And this is actually a futuristic view of what is to come. Nobody on the earth can fill these by themselves. I've seen 40 cores and 50 cores and experienced it with beings in my body during these avian draconian wars, or god draconian wars. And 40 cores is what would make up the circle you see here. And 50 cores, I don't think 50 cores actually, because it actually extends out. And then you have the bounds here, which is just like in a cell. It has the, I think it's called a zona pellucida also for the circle. But this thick layer is just like in the energy body. It actually has its own membrane, and it's a thick substance. And when it has it, when you have this, instead of just this thin line around the circle with all the circles within it that have prearranged areas in which they actually are, and each core is a core of knowledge, which is actually an awesome thing that is can be discovered and actually seen with the energy eye, or the energy body, because the energy body could see without the eyes. It just senses and it knows. Just like you do in dreaming, your eyes aren't open, but you can start to sense. That's a natural resource that we have available to the being to make it alive. And here with this zona pellucida, this area is actually a really cool part of us. Once you fill this in, instead of extending further and creating a larger field, which may be unnecessary, the zona pellucida actually fills in. And maybe I'll make another video and talk more exclusively on these things in the future, or at least I'll examine them myself and be able to describe them better later on to either the individuals or in a video. And then we also have the 13 dynamics and 13 cores, and that kind of has to do with the crystalline features and the metaphysical aspects which we'll enter into, which has to be done through a co-creator state also. And I wrote down positive, negative, and no but I don't think I'll have time to get to those. But I want to thank everybody for watching this video, and I want you to wish you all a happy day and a good day.